The Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan, and DigitalOcean. Go over to digitalocean.com and use our promo code LASTDigital, and then you can spin up your own Linux rig for free. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 371. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey, Noah, good morning to you. Guess what? Huge show. And you would know because you spent the whole week working on this topic today.
Not by choice.
No, but this is one of the great things about Noah's day job is sometimes it bears amazing fruit for the big show. Today, we're going to talk about how you can leverage open source technology to enable free calling across the world between just maybe your project group or your family and your team. We're going to talk about how you can do it under Linux, how open source software makes it all possible, from really small stuff like personal stuff to large enterprise infrastructure type scale, and Linux makes it all possible, and Noah's been heads down in that this week, and so we're going to get all of his experience in today's episode of The Big Show. Plus in the news, let's talk about Google automatically downloading that binary to turn on your microphone and where that's all gone from here. Also, we've got to talk about the fact that the Linux Foundation is spending some of their cash on a seriously important project. Docker, CoreOS, Google, Microsoft, and a bunch of others are working together on the future of containers. And Red Hat's making some pretty bold comments about Linux in the data center. Really, actually bold comments. Like, I know it's like, what? That seems like, no, trust me, it's crazy. But first, Noah, it's our picks.
The picks.
Now, I love these Microtech routers since you turned me on to them, but I don't know about this one. This one looks like a teensy-tiny little guy. Tell me about this one, Noah. The MAP2, is it, or something like that?
It's a baby router. So we were having a discussion in the chat room, not during the show, and one of the gentlemen that was in the chat room said, do you know anything about these? And I said, I haven't heard of them, but I've yet to buy a Microtech product I don't like, so I'd give them a shot and see what you think. And he goes, would you like to hear about it? And I'm like, of course I want to hear about it. So he wrote in with how he's using a Microtech router as he travels to give him a more secure internet. And he actually sent us in a video.
Let's take a look at that. So this is from an audience member to use Microtech as he travels. I love it.
Hi, this is Mr. Eck from the IRC and Mumble. And a while back on the show, Noah mentioned that he buys Microtech routers for his business, Altispeed. And I was looking for a small router to carry in my computer bag, and I found this MAP2N, which is made by Microtech. It runs Router OS, and it's pretty handy. It has a range of about 30 feet, and it is just perfect for what I'm doing with it right now, which is using it in a hotel room, because I don't want to be on the hotel Wi-Fi. I'd rather just have my own. And it's great. It's powered by micro USB.
Oh, I like that.
It can take power over Ethernet, or it also has this 8.5 volt plug here, which takes a special power block, so I don't carry it with me. Right now, like I said, this is being powered by power over USB from this little USB charger. I have also run it from my portable battery pack.
That's
which
cool.
Is great.
Mm-hmm.
And
battery powered.
it's a great little router for getting yourself out of a pinch whenever your Wi-Fi goes, whenever your router goes bad, or you're a place that doesn't have a router, or if you were in a hotel room like I am. And that's my review of the Microtech MAP2N.
And he runs GNOME 3 too. Good man. I like that, Noah.
Isn't that cool? And so, like, who could think of a use for a battery-powered access point? I mean, I could never think of any way that could possibly be useful. Like, so, for example, at conferences, where we lost the internet right as we were about to end the show, you know how nice it would have been to be like, oh, hold on, let me hook my cell phone up to this little router. And, you know, you can go both ways because the wireless is just a interface. So I could set up that Microtech to connect wirelessly to my cell phone and then spit out a wired internet connection that I could feed into the broadcasting machine, and we could stream on Ting.
That's really neat. And what do you think, though, about from the standpoint now? I caught he mentioned Wi-Fi. Did he say that one had Wi-Fi or didn't have Wi-Fi?
It does have Wi-Fi. So he's connected.
How do you feel about as somebody who manages a lot of IT in hotels, people bringing in their own Wi-Fi access points to the hotel room?
Well, if you come to any of the hotels we manage, you're going to find out quickly that won't work because I manage there's stickies on the switchboard, so I can plug my laptop in to the switchboards, but nobody else can. You can connect to the network that I tell you can connect to, and if the one or two hotels that do have wired connection in the room, which aren't many anymore, the one or two that do, those are on the same subnet and subject to the same guest policies as the wireless. So you're still going to hit the captive portal. You're still going to all the things that you would get on wireless, you're going to get on a wired. So I don't really care. However, I have been to hotels where the wired network is drastically different than the wireless network.
Oh yeah, commonly.
Yeah, so it bypasses the captive portal stuff, so you don't have to do the authentication every 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever it is. They don't redirect you to the front page of the hotel, all that stuff.
Right.
And so to be able to travel with that, and like he said, now you're not sharing that wireless spectrum with a lot of other people. The downside, and the only thing I really care about, not that there's anything I can do about this, but it does screw everything up, because when you bring a little wireless access point like that into the hotel, now you pollute the wireless spectrum for everyone in that 50-foot range. Although that one being, I'm guessing that's 200 or 300 milliwatts, is probably going to be far less, egregious than something like the MiFi hotspots from like Verizon and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. No, well, it's a cool pick. Thank you. I'd love to get your runs Linux out there, too. You can submit them to the subreddit, linuxaction.reddit.com, or email into the show, linuxactionshow@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Maybe we'll feature them on a future show. All right, we got some desktop and a weekly open source project spotlight coming up next. But first, I want to tell you about DigitalOcean. That is simple cloud hosting dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to spin up your own cloud server. And that is the way I basically have my Linux infrastructure now. I think of DigitalOcean as Linux infrastructure on demand. If there's a project we have here, and Noah knows this just as well as I do. If there's a project Noah has, he'll spin it up on a DigitalOcean droplet in seconds, and you can too. And we have a great promo for you. If you use our promo code LASTDigital, you get a $10 credit over at DigitalOcean. You could try out their $5 rig 2 months for absolutely free. And get this. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, and pricing plans start only $5 a month for 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, because they're all SSDs, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. A terabyte. And DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, and a great one in Germany. It's a really cool service, and Noah and I have plenty of droplets. And Noah, I didn't even tell you, but just over the weekend, I spun up another droplet just to try out a WordPress instance for somebody else. And if they like it, the DigitalOcean has a very simple transfer. I don't charge them anything for it, but if they like it, it's a simple matter of transferring it for them. And if they don't like it, I've only ran it for a couple of days. And what I really like about it is if you use like our promo code LASTDigital, that's a credit that gets applied to your account. So if you want to try something out for a few days, you don't have to use a credit card. You can just use that LASTDigital promo code, try out CoreOS for a couple of days, or keep it around forever. That's what makes it really easy, because you get 2 months to play with it for absolutely free. And they have a great, great, great interface, very intuitive, and you can replicate the interface on a larger scale with their straightforward API.
And it's, I actually, when we get later into the show, you'll hear a little bit more about this, but I'm trying to, obviously we are in the infant stages of the projects that we're talking about. And of course, I am always thinking about how I can capitalize on it. And one of the ways that I think that one of the things that's going to be necessary for that to happen is I'm going to have to use DigitalOcean to host some of the software, because it's just not going to be cost effective to buy a bunch of machines and host this on site. It makes a lot more sense since the way that software works, it has to go out to the internet anyway. If they lose access to the internet, they've lost access to the phone system regardless. So why not have that phone system reside up on DigitalOcean?
Yeah, with fantastic speeds, great uptime, great documentation, and a really good community. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code LASTDigital to get a $10 credit. And a huge thank you to DigitalOcean. You guys not only are great sponsors of the Linux Action Show, you're helping out the Elementary OS project, which is really great, the Ghost project, lots of projects really. Work directly with the CoreOS team, FreeBSD Foundation. They're a really cool company, and they help sponsor us, keep us on the air. And they're really great from a usage standpoint, too. I think you're really going to like them. LASTDigital when you use DigitalOcean.com. Noah, let's do our first app pick, which is related to today's topic. It's called Ring. Ring.
So I want to make a huge disclaimer. Ring seems to be the new name of the project, but I have yet to find anything that installs by that name. It is in the AUR as Ring, but it doesn't actually, I couldn't get it to build.
Okay.
But if you go on any other distro, it's SFL phone.
Okay.
So if you go to Ubuntu or Fedora and you go to install it, look for SFL phone in the App Store. But what it is it's a SIP client for Linux, and it's a very, very good SIP client. In fact, out of all the SIP clients I tried, and believe me, I've tried them all, this is a very professional grade, well-rounded client that has all the features I would expect from a PBX Office phone. And it runs, of course, in software on my Linux box. So what's great about this is you can install this, and with a SIP provider, you can take this soft phone and go anywhere in the world and communicate from one person to another. Now, later in the show, we're going to talk about how I used a specific SIP provider to talk to my wife when I was in Amsterdam for free. And I did that using SFL phone. So she had SFL phone on her laptop, I had it on mine, and I travel with the headset. Basically everywhere I go, a little USB headset, and she had one. She had a little headset, and that's essentially what we did. And the nice thing about that is, as opposed to Skype or Hangouts or any of those other voice messaging services, this is I own the back end. Mm-hmm. So it's going through my SIP server. And if you don't want to send a SIP server, we've got a suggestion for a free service that you can use. But it does I believe it does support encryption. So when it goes out to the server and when it comes back, that is both sides of that tunnel are encrypted.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. So about Ring specifically itself as a client supports AES 128-bit encryption. It has also support for the Open DHT protocol for decentralized discovery and peer-to-peer communications. So and of course it's an open source client under the GPL3. So it's a really nice client for SIP. For what we're going to be talking about later in the show today, this is like a great one to get. I could not get it to build under Arch. I did not try more than for 5 minutes. But it did not build for me. But they have, if you go to their website, they have PPAs for Ubuntu, or at least repos, not necessarily PPAs, and also a repo for Fedora and Debian as well. Yeah. So they have packages ready to go.
Ubuntu repo. It's in the stock Ubuntu repo. You can just you can install it right from Ubuntu.
Oh, very nice, very nice. All right, Noah, so when the Librem 15 came out on the scene, we talked about it on Linux Unplugged. We brought the creator on the show. We interviewed him. And after some soul searching, I was like, all right, I'll try backing this, and we'll see if the Librem 15, could it be the ultimate Linux laptop, a MacBook Pro killer built for Linux. I haven't gotten the Librem 15 yet, but in the meantime, another laptop from the Librem project is launched, hasn't it, Noah?
And they were actually on Linux Unplugged, and I spoke with the guy privately, and I said, I really like the idea of where you're going with the 15, so much so that I'll buy the Librem 15 if that's the only computer you're going to make. But really, I've kind of been drawn into the 13-inch. And basically, I had a contract job a couple years back, and they gave me a laptop. And previous to that, I was a 15-inch laptop only guy. I wouldn't touch anything else.
Right.
And they gave me a 13-inch laptop, and I said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'll use it for the things that they tell me I have to use it for. The rest of the stuff I'm just going to do on my own personal machine. And so that was how it started. But then as I found out, the 13-inch, when you're on airplanes, when you're sitting in an airport, when you're sitting at a restaurant, when the waitress comes over. Yeah, right. I mean, I can set it down on my lap. Totally different.
Yeah,
it is a mind-blowing experience. And the only thing that I've had against 13-inch laptops for a long time is that they had really crappy displays. Well, actually, System 76 with the Ultra Galago, it wasn't quite a 13-inch, but it was a 14-inch computer that had a 1980 display on it. And that was I really like that. And then the Pixel came out, and that had obviously a 2760 or whatever display. And that was really good. And now I found, when I talked to the Librem guy, he said, yeah, just hold off because we're going to come out with a 13-inch. And sure enough, they've released a 13-inch computer. So the Librem have the Librem 13, and it's everything that you would love about the 15-inch computer, which is a Freedom.
Oh, go ahead. He's talking. Oh, we'll let him say it. Well, no, I'll let him do it. We'll let him do it. He'll take it. He'll play a video.
Security, and freedom. Right now, you are vulnerable to adversaries stealing your personal data for their gain.
Oh, that's an interesting approach.
The Librem laptop keeps you safe. It marries the best software certified by security, privacy, and freedom experts with a slim and beautiful design, including hardware switches to turn off your microphone and camera. The instant you open your Librem laptop, you are protected. Purism's operating system, PureOS, is completely free and open source, with the most popular Mac and Windows compatible software pre-installed, including browser, email, graphics, drawing, word processing, presentation, spreadsheet, and media player. We respect your right to privacy, security, and freedom. We are Purism, and we believe in users' rights.
So not only is my plan right at this moment to back this project and to try and acquire one of these, but I also have a fun little bet going with Zarok in the chat room. He wants me to try to leave the freedom-respecting operating system on there, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to when the laptop comes, I'm going to leave it on there, and we're going to see how far I can go before I hit a roadblock that I can't can't tackle, and I have to install non-free software on it. But if his argument is that he thinks I'm not giving it enough of a chance, and that if I tried it, I could get all of my work done. And as a person that makes that exact same argument to people using Windows to switch to Linux, I'm willing to give it a shot.
So it does have a couple of binary blobs, one for the AMD AG ESA, I don't know what the hell that is, and one for the Intel stuff.
Right.
Stay on Triskel.
The operating system is free, but really what I like about it is I think that the number one reason people don't have Linux laptops, the reason that people aren't using Linux, the number one reason for that is that they cannot buy a computer with it pre-installed. And the computers that they can buy it pre-installed with are not necessarily always very high quality. I mean, certainly some of the stuff from System 76 is a lot better. But like Dell, even that laptop that we were renting and raving about for $249, it's a really great computer for $249. But at the end of the day, it's a plastic $249 sell-around computer, right? And so what this is a very high-end computer.
It's
and what
I5.
I think could happen,
it's an i5. Yeah.
Right, but as far as build quality, though, I think it's going to be a lot higher than the competition. What's going to be nice about that is I could see big box stores picking something like this up if it starts to gain some traction. At least that's my hope.
For some reason, I don't know why, it's rubbing me the wrong way that they're doing their own distro. For some reason, feels like.
Really?
I guess because it feels like they're focusing on the wrong thing there. They should just be shipping it with Triskel or Ubuntu if they're going to do that and focus on the hardware more. I don't know why. I guess to me it feels like a warning sign for some reason, like a red flag, and I can't explain it further than that. Just a little bit like, that doesn't seem right to me.
Or if it was a company that was shipping a proprietary product or even necessarily an open source product, I might see your point a little bit more. But the reality is these guys are building a product and software to be as open and freedom respecting as possible. There is really no way for them to. There's really no way for them to do anything.
So here's
malicious.
the problem. Here's maybe this is the disconnect. Then I'll just leave it at this. But what doesn't quite make sense to me is they're marketing and focusing on protecting. Essentially, they're marketing to the lowest common denominator user. Watch out for boogeyman. Watch out for viruses. Watch out for bad guys. The internet is scary. Buy our super expensive, freedom-respecting laptop. There's a big disconnect because if you're somebody who is scared by all of those things and motivated to buy a over $1,000 laptop because of those things, you're also probably not somebody who cares about internet freedoms, personal freedoms, source freedom. Like you don't care about any of that stuff. To me, it feels like a mismatch. If they want to market to Linux hardcore enthusiasts and GPL fanboys and Richard Stallman and yourself and me and the Linux Action Show audience, they should be probably talking about more how it's an incredible Linux machine, how it's really well built, and how it's designed to be a great Linux workstation, not how it's going to protect me from boogeymen and viruses. Because if I'm interested in buying a $1,000 plus Linux laptop, I already know about the benefits of Linux. And if I'm not interested in buying a Linux laptop, I'm going to buy a brand name because that's how humans work. They buy things with brand names. So if you don't know about it,
I think you're onto something because you notice if you go back, when you're watching this episode, fast forward or rewind the last 18 seconds or the last 45 seconds. Actually, what stood out to me really was that it's a well built laptop. It's an elegant laptop that I can run Linux on. That's kind of what drew it to me. Honestly, I don't think it had anything really to do with the fact that it was freedom respecting. And I think you're right. People like Richard Stallman don't really care if it's
the people that really care that it's freedom respecting are going to hate that it requires those binary blobs. So I'm not saying it's a bad product. I'm saying the marketing is mismatched.
What you're saying is you've almost kind of struck the balance of the worst of both worlds. Almost.
Yeah, and what alarms me is that they don't know that, and that they're also rolling their own OS too, which again, not a big warning sign, but those two things, like the tone mismatch from the community and rolling your own OS, which never feels quite right to me. I mean, because look at System 76, for example. They've been around much, much longer, and they've never went the route of rolling their own OS. For a good reason, too. And like when Dell starts shipping Linux, they don't ship Dell OS.
No, but they did modify Ubuntu, and my understanding is that Purism OS has modified Triskel.
I know. It's not a big deal. And I still think all of those things aside, it could make a very good piece of hardware, and that's what matters. So I wouldn't discourage you from trying one, because I'm going to try the 15.
I don't think there's much anyone could say to discourage me from trying one, lest they say that they double the price or something like that. But the nice thing is, I think I have until August to back them.
It's on Crowd Supply right now. It has $48,000 of $250,000 with 36 days left, 19% funded with 43 pledges. And the earliest bid is at, you can start at 1,500, basically, 14 So, yeah, but I know some of the Librams are shipping, and so I'm really curious to see how they go. That's a good find, Noah, over at crowdsupply.com. We'll have a link to that in the show notes if you guys are curious about possibly picking up a really, really slick 13-inch Linux laptop. And if you get one, let us know what you think about it. But Noah, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. No, come on, you know that. It's last.ting.com. Quit messing around. Go to last.ting.com right now because Ting is mobile that makes sense. And come on, we need somebody to go in there with a sense nuke, like a nuke that just blows up sense everywhere. You know what I'm talking about? Like a sense bomb, Noah. Like a sense bomb. We go in there, we blow up a sense bomb all over the duopolies. Yes. That's what's happening up with Ting. Go to last.ting.com. Check them out. Here's why I say it's mobile that makes sense, because you only pay for what you use. You don't buy a huge set of minutes and megabytes and messages in case you use them. Isn't that a gimmick? Hey, I'm gonna buy 500 minutes because I might use them. It sounds ridiculous. With Ting, you just pay for what you use as a flat $6 for the line, and then any taxes and your usage. It's minutes, messages, megabytes, add them up, whatever bucket you fall into, that's all you pay. And yeah, you still get things like hotspot tethering, caller ID, picture messaging, text messaging, etc., etc., etc. In fact, if you want to use Ting as a mobile ISP, that's fine. And after today's episode, you could probably get away with almost 0 voice minutes on Ting and have an unbelievable bill. I've got 4 phones now that are active, and my bill's still between $37 and about $42, $44, depending on what I'm doing that month. It's unbelievable. All smartphones, and it's not because I'm some crazy baller, it's because it's only $6 for the line. And because the phones are unlocked, what I have discovered is long-term, it's actually, I get more and more value out of that phone. So like, for example, the Nexus 5 I have on the Ting network. Now it's no longer my primary daily driver, but I can use that to test out Ubuntu Touch or Firefox OS. Or the HTC One was a great, great phone, but I was able to give that to Rikai, so now he can use that as his daily driver. And it's great because it's unlocked. We own it essentially immediately, like when you buy a computer. It's mine. Which, if you think about it, is probably how it should always be. So get started by going to last.ting.com. Until the end of the month, that's going to take $50 off a device. $50 off a device. Or if you have a device compatible and they have a GSM and CDMA network, if you got a compatible device, they'll give you a $50 service credit. Woo! Man, look at some of these devices too, Noah. It's starting like 47 bones. I mean, you know all about the crazy cheap portable GSM phones. I mean, there's a whole range of phones on here.
I put a China cabinet in my living room now where I'm collecting cheap GSM phones. What has really stuck out to me about Ting this week was, obviously, as I was going through some of this phone stuff that we're going to talk about in the main segment, I was obviously looking for SIP clients for Android. Yeah. And I found one that worked, and I was really excited about it. And so one of my clients was there and kind of watching me play with this, and he goes, so when are you coming to install this for me? And I said, well, we can probably work something out. So I set him up a test box so he could kind of try it and see what he likes. And he said, can you put it on my phone? So I said, yeah. Well, he had Verizon, and I installed the SIP client. Guess what? Verizon blocks SIP traffic.
No way!
Yeah. So you will not be using a SIP phone if you have a Verizon service. He can only use it when he's on Wi-Fi. And at first, I thought there was something wrong with the box. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, what is going on? So then I tried to log him into my SIP box, and it didn't work. And I thought, weird. And so it will only work if it's on Wi-Fi. If it's on mobile data, can't use it. Obviously with Ting, I had no problems. Every phone I had connected just fine.
Yeah, I've never had a problem.
Ting wants me if I can find a way to put less strain on their voice network and deal with it's great for them, and so I'm going to buy more devices, and I can attach them to my SIP lines, and now I have SIP lines that go everywhere in the world.
So Ting isn't about we don't have to have a multimedia platform. So if you want to, if you can make Ubuntu Touch work on the Ting network, they're not going to necessarily support that, but they're not going to shut that down. That's what I love about them, right? Is the way their model works is they're able to focus on the customer support and the platform features for their web interface and their mobile app. That's their platform, is the customer. And it's really obvious why they're able to do this. They're an MVNO. So instead of having to spend billions and billions on the towers, they're able to rent and lease the towers from the best companies at the best times for the best arrangements to meet their customer demands as they need. It's way more flexible. And you know what I love? Noah.
Tell me what you love.
You know what I love is I don't get to do the app picks anymore. Kyra's out on the street, out there, pounding the pavement, making sure she can recommend the best apps for us. So if you don't have to be a Ting customer to take advantage of these apps, but if you're a Ting customer, this makes the Ting experience even better. Kyra's here with our app pick of the week. Take it away, Kyra.
I'm Kyra, and we're getting crafty on this week's Ting app of the week.
All right. Oh, shoot.
If you consider yourself a beer enthusiast or even a budding enthusiast, you'll want to check out Untapped. Put simply, it's a social network for beer drinkers. Think of Untapped as a mix between social and discovery. On the social side is a timeline that details what your friends have been drinking.
Love it.
You can toast any check-in, comment on it.
We should do this.
Or view additional details like the drink's ABV, IBU, its overall rating, and where you can find it. As for the discovery side of the app, the social feed lets you see what others have been drinking both globally and nearby. The app can also access your location and list beers, bars, and breweries in your area.
Handy.
Or you can search for a specific kind of beer and find it in your area. Finally, your beer logging can move beyond paper and spreadsheets and into one handy-to-use app. And it goes without saying to drink responsibly and avoid playing Crossy Road after a few good brews. Untapped is free for Android, iOS, and Windows Phone.
That's awesome.
Remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check out our other great shows.
Last.ting.com. I agree with Hawkins. That might be the best app pick ever. How cool is that?
In all of my life.
Where
has that been? I need an app that tells me where beer is.
So it's called Untapped. Yeah, we should definitely let's get that. I'm gonna get that. You can find out more if you go to last.ting.com and then go to their blog. They have a whole bunch of great app picks previously up there too, and they do new videos all the time. You can also follow them on Twitter, TingFTW. Last.ting.com. Go check them out. And I gotta say, really huge thank you to Ting for sponsoring Linux Action Show. You guys rock. All right, Noah, let's talk about Googs.
So, you can't call it that.
No, I can't. Google got a lot of heat this week when it was discovered, I believe, by a Debian a bug post. There we go. A Debian bug post that Chromium was downloading a binary in the background silently that enabled the microphone so that way you could do the OK Google functionality. And now that caused quite a bit of upset when people realized it might not be strictly limited to just Debian. And Google kind of had a bit of an awkward response at first. I don't know if you were familiar with it, but at first they're like, well, don't blame us. It's an open source project. And then later they changed their tune and they said, yes, we're going to dial it down. We're going to take that out. We'll remove it.
The part that was doing that was not open source, though.
Right. It was right. Yeah. Well, the browser itself is open source, but the binary blob it was downloading was not correct.
Yeah, yes. But that does not compute. It doesn't work like that. Like you can't say well, it's an open source project, so you can audit the code, except for the binary blob that we put in there that you can audit. Like that, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time even trying to formulate a thought around that. So I know that on one hand it upsets me, right? On one hand, it upsets me that Google seems to know no limits, and what limits do seem to be imposed seem to only get imposed when people figure out what's going on after the fact.
Yeah.
And catch them. And so it's kind of like the kid with his hand in the cookie jar.
Ooh, that's a good point.
And that's the only reason. It's not that they actually respect user freedom, which leads me to just give another pump for Firefox. On the other hand, the other side of me, the other pragmatic and the other realistic side of me says, if you have an Android phone, this stuff is already occurring. My Android phone listens to me and records me. Okay, and then when I go on the internet, what sites are you visiting, and what information are those sites collecting? I mean, maybe it's not the microphone per se, but wasn't it Samsung had a TV a couple months ago that had the same thing where they actually put in the owner's manual, don't say private things around the TV. It's listening.
In the EULA, I think it was actually.
So how upset are we really going to get about this? How upset are we really going to get that? I mean, this comes as, is anyone really that shocked that Google has this OK Google feature that has been rolled out across every other device that utilizes Google services, and now it's coming to the browser, and we're upset about it?
I want to break this down, and I want to break this down in just two brief chunks, because maybe others have heard it if you watch Tech Talk already. But there's two things I think to think about this. There's one, where did the actual line get crossed at here? And I would argue the line was not crossed because it was a binary blob that enables my microphone. Where the line was crossed was when an open source project downloads a binary blob that enables something hardware-wise on my computer. That could be improved GPU rendering for web pages. That could be a better way to handle SSD drives. Maybe that's for cache management. It could be something for my webcam or my microphone. Anything that touches my hardware that's a binary blob, the way that should work, in my opinion, is sort of the way it works today in the Play Store if I install an Android app. It should come up and say, hey, this thing's about to download and it needs access to these things. Or it could do it the way iOS has done it from day one, and the way Android M is going to be copying it in Android M's release, where when the device goes to access the piece of hardware like GPS, Wi-Fi, or microphone, whatever, contacts, camera roll, then it prompts the user at that point, hey, would you like to do this? That would have been, there's no reason. That's two different ways you could do it. Google's obviously aware of both those ways. They could have implemented that in Chrome or Chromium. So in my opinion, the line's crossed when a binary blob gets downloaded that touches my hardware in some way. What's creepy and egregious is that thing enables the OK Google speech recognition. I think we all have to keep in mind, though, that you can test this by disabling the network activity on your computer, but I believe the OK Google actually processes locally. I don't think it actually sends it. Now, it is listening to all words in order to capture OK, George. We'll should probably stop saying it because it's probably going to trigger somebody's machine. It is listening to everything you say, but it is doing that locally. Right. So in my opinion, they crossed a line there. Now here's the real son of a bitch thing about I'm not dropping Chrome. In my opinion, and I know we've talked about this before, we don't need to make a big thing about this. Firefox just doesn't work for me for what I need. I'm kind of stuck with Chrome. But I am getting really, really, really uncomfortable with Google. I have had some recent experiences with friends and family where they first experienced Google Photos for the first time, and the reaction wasn't, oh my gosh, this is really cool and powerful. The reaction was, wow, Google can do some really creepy things. And so sometimes when you throw these things in people's faces and they haven't been following Google and they haven't been in the tech industry for a while, they're surprised by how invasive it is. And meanwhile, a lot of us sit here and go, yeah, it's not very good, not very good. But I think we're a little bit of the boiling frog in this scenario. I think this is probably a bad one.
Very much so. Very much so. Because to your point about being a boiling frog, if tomorrow you decided that Google is mining too much data and you want to go away from it, well, now you have to find a new email solution because we're using Gmail. You better find a new way that we can do collaborative document editing because otherwise show docs aren't going to get done.
Right.
There's all these services.
There's answers there. There's answers for all of that for some degree. But the truth is, Noah, I'm already there. Right. Yeah. I'm already leery to use Android. I'm already leery to use Google search when it's something really personal or awkward that I just don't want in a personality. Like, there's something I was going to search for a friend about suicide. I don't want that. I don't know. Is Google, like, if I start searching for suicide, does Google log that somewhere about me? Like, does that go into some sort of personality index about me? What happens there?
Yeah.
And so that's when I start using DuckDuckGo.
Right.
And I've stopped using the Google search as much. I've stopped using Android as much. I'm pulling back a little bit. Now I'm looking at Chrome and I'm thinking, maybe I just need to replace all those extensions with like individual tools and use like GNOME Web or something. I mean, I really don't know what to do.
Let me ask you this though, Chris. I mean, be honest with me. I mean, can you get your work done on DuckDuckGo? Because I've tried it. I've tried to go that route. The problem is, I keep hitting these blocks of I can't get my stuff done because I can't find anything. It's not a terrible search engine, and for basic stuff it works all right. But like so specifically, searching how to get something, how to do something. You're looking for how-to guides or blog posts on somebody who's done something or a problem that you're having. I found DuckDuckGo to just not be practical for that.
Yeah, I do find Google search to be a little better for what I do. A lot of times it's stuff that's really hyper relevant and new because it's show research, so maybe it's even stuff that's happened that day. Google seems to be a lot better at that particular kind of stuff. And Google has Google News, which is really great to search as well, which is helpful for me. Yeah, I'm already in the spot where I would, if I could flip a switch today and stop using Google tomorrow, I would. And I've gotten really, really, really close. But to make it practically work, the way I found it was I got an iPhone 5 and I got OwnCloud and I set up all my stuff to sync over LDAP and IMAP and CardDAV and CalDAV, and that's how I got away from Google. But I had to go to iOS to make it fully practical. Because if I still wanted things like really good navigation, and I still wanted some basic hands-free voice functionality search for like setting reminders and location-based reminders, like functionality from a smartphone that was built in 2013. If I want that kind of functionality, It's like Windows Phone or iOS if I'm not using Google right now. At least in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I feel like I'm already there now. Any other thoughts before we move on?
No, I wonder if Sailfish has the potential to change that for you, because you have a free open source operating system, but it has the ability to run all of your APKs. So
I like it. Sailfish is a little awkward for me to use. I have it on the Nexus. I don't have it currently installed.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I've had it on the Nexus. Yeah. Yep. A lot of swiping. This next story sort of blew my mind. I was reading about it over last week. DockerCon happened since we were on the air last, and DockerCon actually had some pretty huge announcements. Docker, CoreOS, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. Well, actually, check out the full list here. This is unbelievable. So not only is it Google, Microsoft, Amazon, CoreOS, and Docker working together, also joining on board in this coalition is, here's a few other names. I'm just going to name a couple of them. These are all of them. Cisco, EMC, Fujitsu, Goldman Sachs, HP, IBM, Intel, Joynet, Research Labs, Red Hat, VMware, Pivotal, and others are all joining this open container project. This is virtually everybody who has a stake in the ecosystem. Anybody, really, that's like a major player, is all joining together. Remember last December, CoreOS announced it was launching its own container, Rocket, and the app spec and Google and Red Hat and VMware jumped on board, and we interviewed their project leader about that at the time. Well, it looked like Docker and CoreOS might be on a bit of a standards collision course. Which one was going to be the better container standard, which would win out? Well, now the two companies are going to work together, and other stakeholders are going to form the Open Container Project called OCP, which is going to be housed under the Linux Foundation. Yeah. So the Docker container format and runtime will be the basis of the new standard, and Docker is donating both the draft spec and the code around its image format and runtime to get the project started. And the Linux Foundation will be housing it. And so it looks like CoreOS and Docker are making good, and this has got some serious stank behind it. That DockerCon, I watched some of it live, was a big deal, and some really big players are up there. And I mean, there's people that are building entire businesses right now around delivering software through some of these specifications they worked on. Like, that's going to be all they do for companies.
Right. You know, so when we look at Linux, we want to celebrate the differences between different distros. But the reality is it comes down to two different paths you can take. Either we accept the reality that Linux is not a cohesive operating system, and so every distribution is an operating system. Linux is simply the shared kernel. And in that respect, there is no, I don't want to ever hear somebody complain that I should use this distro over that distro because I'm going to use the operating system that has the software available to me. On the other hand, if you don't want to accept that, if you want to say that, well, we want to have all these things shared and they're just different flavors, it's just a little bit of a difference. It's not really a different operating system. It just kind of, there are minor differences. And basically, everything's the same. If you want to take that approach, then Linux has a huge problem with not having a unified installer, because on every other operating system, I have something.
Well,
it doesn't matter how. Well, so that's what I'm thinking, is that it even extends beyond Linux, because now I have a universal installer that's not just cross-distro, it's cross-platform.
Yeah,
I can install So I think that has the huge potential to shoot things forward and solve a really fundamental problem, if you want to call it a problem, that Linux has had for a long time that is extremely off-putting to new users. I bet probably once every 2 shows we get at least one emailed into the show of somebody saying, I just started watching the show, really like what you guys are doing. Is there any sort of universal installer, or can we have a universal installer with like a .tux extension that I can just double-click on and install? Yeah. I mean, everyone, as soon as you see it, even people that don't understand the technical details of it go, we should have this. And then, of course, you have every excuse in the book of why we don't do that on Linux. And not to say that those people aren't right and that those aren't all valid reasons, but it's the problem exists. And this finally has the possibility to change it.
You know, it jumps out at me, though. You know,
the fact that we were going to diversify the one thing that was going to be cohesive?
No, well, there's one thing that would make me feel better about all of this if there was a Canonical or Ubuntu logo on that list. It's kind of a big name in the cloud to not be on that list. And Canonical and Ubuntu are working on their own container format. So I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, that is kind of, I mean, that's kind of the way things go these days, right? I mean, Well, they tend to do that, right? I mean, so to take the other side of that, Canonical has time and time again tried to kind of take this approach of if we can kind of craft everything and give solid direction to things rather than just kind of rolling with the punches, then we can craft a more elegant and cohesive operating system altogether. And so that's, they for a while they were going with their own init system. They're clearly going with their own desktop. They're going to go with their own display manager, and they're going to go with their own containerized package. But as long as Ubuntu supports Docker, as long as I can run Docker images on Ubuntu, do we really care? If they want to do something else, here's what happened. One of two things happen. Either we all decide to switch to the Ubuntu one because it's better, or the advantages that Canonical leverages with their packaging system is going to get pushed out into Docker, and we take that. And either way, I think we win.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some more kumbaya here. The Linux Foundation is investing 452,000 U.S. greenbacks in open source security projects. Now, this is going back to that new core infrastructure initiative that came out in the wake of Heartbleed, the OpenSSL vulnerability in February. In February, it was only February? Wow, in February they announced they raised $5.5 million for this whole thing. So they got $5.5 million to spread around, and so then there's backers in there that brought that $5.5 million, like Adobe, Bloomberg, HP, VMware, Rackspace, NetApp, Microsoft, Intel, IBM, Google, Fujitsu, Facebook, Dell, Amazon, and Cisco all threw into the kitty to help spread the money around. Among the 3 new open source efforts that the Core Infrastructure Initiative from the Linux Foundation is going to be given money to is the Reproducible Builds Project, which is receiving the most money at $200,000. This is so that way you can verify that when you build something, it is exactly binary, as the source. So that way you know it's secure, it hasn't been tampered with. It's exactly like a reproducible build. It's exactly reproducible. Another open source project that they're giving money to is the Fuzzing project, which is receiving $60,000. Fuzzing is a common code testing approach in which random inputs are thrown at an application to see what happens. And then also they're given $192,000 to the False Positive Free Testing project. This is a cool one. Its roots are in a closed source tool, and it's going to receive this $192,000 to help evolve the project into an open source tool so the rest of us can take advantage of it. So there you go. They're going to be doing that over 10 months. Good to see some of that infrastructure money getting spread around to projects.
Very much so, because one of the first reactions I had when Heartbleed happened was, this is a problem that places like Google and even the Linux Foundation and all these other places that have a lot of capital don't invest that capital in the infrastructure that they so heavily rely upon because it's open source and they can obtain it for free. And it seems like people tend to take advantage of that, even the people that have the means to support it. So it's really great to see places like the Linux Foundation stepping up and saying, you know what, it's a problem, we're going to rectify it, and here's a huge chunk of change.
Cash money at your face. At your face.
Yeah.
At first they laugh at you and then they fight you. That saying that gets posted online. How do you know if something's won, if a technology is won? Well, that's something that gets quoted a lot online. If Linux or open source is won. And the CEO of Red Hat says, if you use that measurement today, I think by all measurements, Linux has won. And the clip isn't awesome because he's up on stage, but I want to play it because this is a meme that we've all seen posted on Slashdot and Reddit comments everywhere. Everywhere you've seen this a million times. So using that metric, I think, is an interesting idea now.
Going through every stage of this, we check it off. We look at this every morning when we come in the morning.
First they ignore you.
And I'm here to tell you today
then they laugh at you.
That Linux and the open source community have won, and they've completed the Gandhi quote here. We can now check that last box of Gandhi's insight. Linux has won in the data center. One of 2 in the data center. Think about that. But now all of our job, we're not near satisfied. We've just gotten started. Now our job is to take open source all the way across the infrastructure and the application development infrastructure in the enterprise.
So he says if you go by that metric, first so let's see, let me back it up here. Which I know it's a little hard to hear because first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And in his opinion, that's where we're at. And looking at how Microsoft is right now the number 1 contributor to the Docker project, Microsoft. Right? Microsoft was one of the number 1 contributors to the Linux kernel a couple of years ago. They're hustling, because they have to make their products compatible with these key open source technologies. I think it's pretty clear that Linux has one. And I like to, he's not saying Red Hat won. He's saying Linux won.
Notice that he expands that and says that that's just the start. The data center was the start, and now they want to transition, through that enterprise environment. And I think that part excites me even more, if only because I feel like saying that Linux has won in the data center, that was probably true 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, was there even if we look back 5 years, was there really any serious company of any serious size that didn't have Linux on the back end?
Well, that is definitely true, but now when you look at it from a vendor support standpoint and an industry support standpoint, it is absolutely mandatory. I mean, I just want to recap. I just want to remind you, in the last few months, we've gotten Microsoft releasing Visual Studio Code for Linux, desktop, and Apple open sourcing and going to be releasing Swift too for Linux.
Right. Right, but those, I guess maybe I misunderstand. I was, when he says they won in the data center, I'm thinking backend servers.
Yeah,
not necessarily. So, but I think that has been one for quite some time.
What I'm saying is the vendor momentum behind Linux. Like, so in my opinion, Swift is solely a backend technology for Linux. That's the only reason Swift exists. Open source, so that way they can write server-side Swift apps to talk to client-side Swift apps. And Visual Studio Code, the reason why that exists for Linux is because people are writing website apps that run on Linux. That's why those applications exist from those vendors. But my point is that's how far their commitment is now. I think it is very clear that Linux has won. I mean, you're right. There's always been Linux in the data center, but the amount of vendor momentum behind it now is unstoppable.
Well, so it's going to be interesting to see when he talks about how he wants to bring that through the enterprise infrastructure, exactly where that's going to be. And I tell you what, after being firsthand in Red Hat, from a company that uses Linux, I mean uses Linux everywhere, places that I wouldn't even think are practical to use Linux. They find ways to shoehorn Linux into. From a company like that, that's the company I want to see at the front battle of saying we're going to bring Linux from the data center and we're going to bring it all the way through the enterprise. Because I think that if anyone could do it, it would be Red Hat. And, of course, all the other projects that Red Hat relies upon and all the other community members that Red Hat works with to make that happen.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, very good. And the rest of that video, if you want to watch the rest of the clip, it's looks like it's about 4 minutes long, and I only played 30 seconds since the audio was so rough. But the rest of it is in the show notes. I have it linked directly if you'd like to watch that, because he shares his thoughts on that. But Noah, that's all the news for this week. This week, Noah went on quite the adventure, and at the end of that adventure, he discovered free open source calling for all, and now he's going to share it with the audience. But first, I want to tell you about a new segment sponsor that I'm super excited about, and that is OSCON. That's right. You guys know about OSCON, right? It's happening July 20th through the 24th in Portland. That's where software engineers and the open source community gather to explore what's new in open source languages, tools, and techniques. Noah and I have been going for years now. We're going this year, and it really, if you've been wondering, does OSCON apply to me? Everybody uses open source. Everybody's using some sort of open source tool in their business. So really, we're all open source users. A lot of us are Linux users on this show. So OSCON thinks you guys are probably the perfect fit. So Noah and I are going to go down there. We'd love to see you as well. So if you want to make it, we have a discount for you. You can use the discount code Linux to save a 20% off of either the gold, platinum, or silver or bronze pass. How about that? If you use the promo code Linux, you're going to get that. That's a really nice deal, and I want you to try it because, honestly, OSCON is a great resource if you're in business, if you're anywhere where open source is sort of integral to your biz. And check it out. They got a video here, Noah.
How do they cooperate?
I love it.
They don't know each other. How can we actually create shared artifacts and systems that allow us to share? Think about that for a minute. You know, open source.
All right, so guess what? We're going to give away a free Expo Hall pass. If you tweet at Jupiter Signal with hashtag OSCON, I want to see you at OSCON, we'll give away a free pass and go there and you can meet up with us too. You can get down to see the Expo Hall. That's the part that Noah and I love. Now the sessions at OSCON are the bread and butter. I mean, the people they bring in, they've already got the list up on their site. It is worth the trip just for that. But Noah and I are really excited because this is going to be the last year they're in Portland, and we're going out with a bang. So we're going to do a meetup on Wednesday at 5 p.m. If you're going to be at OSCON, come join Noah and I. And remember, you can also get a discount if you use the promo code Linux on either gold, platinum, silver, or bronze pass, or tweet at Jupiter Signal with hashtag OSCON, and you get entered in for the drawing. I'm looking forward to it, Noah.
Me too. So last year was the first time I had actually ever had the opportunity to attend OSCON, but I've attended LinuxCon for a while.
Oh, that was your first last year?
That was my first to OSCON, yeah. But OSCON and LinuxCon are very, very similar. So if you are a person that has ever attended LinuxCon and you want to see how open source software that extends outside of specifically Linux, then that's kind of what OSCON is geared towards. Yeah. And the nice thing is you cannot substitute these kind of resources for anything else. So I have paid for training. I've paid a lot of money for training, and honestly, I get far more out of going to these kinds of conferences. Now, this is not a place where you're going to go necessarily to meet up with neckbeards that are installing Slackware. That's not this kind of conference. This would be more toward some of them,
But you know what I think is I think, and it's something that I think the best part about OSCON is you can go there and just have totally uninterrupted time in the sessions. Now, the reason why I mention that is if you are in the technology business at all, and you get pulled in 100 different directions during the workday, you've got people that are interrupting you. It's really hard to figure out what's that next technology that's going to help us break through or make this a little better, or where can we move to make this problem a little easier? What are my solutions here? The nice thing about OSCON is they have so many tracks and so many sessions going on where you can go deep dive without any interruptions, and you come back with a whole wealth of knowledge. So it's a conference that's really, really great for those kinds of any kind of open source solution there, and the stuff that people are building around it too. That's another big part of it.
Well, and so the people that are building that stuff around it, they announce a lot of that stuff at OSCON, and the changes and the things that you can bring home. Like, so I run an IT business, right? I have to know what's current. I have to know what technologies are the best solutions that are out there. Yeah. OSCON this is exactly the kind of place you'd go to get that information, because they have the people, because places like O'Reilly have the financial backing to bring in some of these big players to explain in detail how their project works, how their software works, and the solutions that you can take back and then use to, in my case, to make a living off of. And I rely on conferences like this. Not so much this. Like I said, last year was the first year, but I was impressed with the quality of the speakers and stuff like that. But I've always been impressed with things like LinuxCon, and I've always found that to be a valuable resource when I come back home. So I'm excited to be out there to be at OSCON and have a chance to shake hands with some of these people. And if you can't make it to OSCON, we're going to be on the floor interviewing people that are at OSCON on the expo hall and some of the speakers, and we're going to bring that, and that'll obviously be wrapped up back into LAS. And of course, that's a huge thank you to the O'Reilly Group for inviting us to come out there and help us with that. So
meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting if you want to hang out with us Wednesday evening, or just come say hi to us on the floor. And don't forget too, you have a good chance. You can, if you tweet at Jupiter Signal, hashtag OSCON, tweet us like I want to see you there, or your IRC handle with hashtag OSCON, and we'll enter you into the drawing to win a free bronze pass to make it yourself. I think that's a free bronze pass. Is going to be perfect for you guys if you can make it. Meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Honestly, if you're in the area, if you're in the Portland area on the 22nd and want to join us, you're more than welcome. Go check out. And also, if you want to buy some tickets, go to oscon.com and check them out. OSCON is it's pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to it this year. And I think it's going to be a blast being in Portland. And check it out, oscon.com. And remember, promo code Linux to get a 20% discount, or tweet at Jupiter Signal, hashtag OSCON for a free bronze pass. And one of the cool bits of hardware that we saw last year at OSCON was the full open source wood Linux laptop. Remember that guy, the guy that built his laptop out of wood? Yes. That was so cool. That was a find at OSCON last year. So there's always neat things all across the spectrum. The other thing that I knew, I remember last year at OSCON, I went up and talked to Rackspace, and they were all in on CoreOS. They were super excited about CoreOS, and that was really before CoreOS was really, really big. And I remember going, oh, well, if Rackspace is moving their whole ship over to CoreOS, this is going to go somewhere.
See, now, and where would you have had the opportunity to talk to Rackspace? Because Linux cons are great, and Linux fests are great. As you know, that's kind of like my refreshing period. But you don't find big players like that coming out to the little fests, right? And so when they do come to things like OSCON, LinuxCon, stuff like that. And so you get a chance to talk to them and find out what exciting things they're doing. And of course, I'm sure we'll probably be able to snag an interview again with Rackspace, assuming that they're there again, which I'm sure they will be.
All right, Noah. So tell me about your week. Has it been crazy?
Yeah. So as you know, that a lot of my house is automated, and so of course, because we began to plan filming a show at my house, of course, everything would have to come crashing down. So I wake up on Father's Day. I would expected to wake up to my wife going, "Good morning, darling. Here is some food." Instead, I wake up to no lights, and my wife going, "There's a lot of beeping coming from downstairs." So I wake up and I kind of look around the room and the lights aren't on and the phone's not on. And I pull out my cell phone to do some rudimentary troubleshooting before I can get my eyes open. I realize I have no internet. So I'm like, well, everything has really kind of taken a dive. So I just need a couple minutes to relax. So I go into the bathroom to relax. And of course the lights don't work in there. And I'm like, geez. So I'm kind of like, all right, well, I got to go figure out what's going on. I figure that the power has gone out and probably the UPS took a dump or something. And that's what's going on. I walk downstairs. And there is water everywhere, on the ceiling, on my equipment, on the servers, on the automation stuff, everywhere. So first thing is, where the heck did all this water come from? So I'm looking around, I can't find it. So I go upstairs and I'm like, did the kids like have a water fight in the basement by chance? No. I said, well, has anything occurred with water today? And she goes, well, I watered the garden. And I said, when you watered the garden, did you stick a hose in the basement and spray it all over? And she goes, no, I like out in the garden. I'm like, all right, well, did you shut the hose off? And she goes, I think so. So she goes outside and she checks and she goes, yeah, the hose is off. And I said, well, turn it on. Well, she turns it on and there's a geyser in my basement, just erupts. And I see that there's this pipe that is going out and that it has split like all the way down the middle and is now spraying water. Well, I was able to recover most of the stuff was fine. Thankfully, I think the UPS got soaked and tanked, and then when that happened, everything else lost power. So everything else came up okay, but my PBX system, my phone system that I have in my house, was totally destroyed. It's right underneath that pipe, and it just got blasted. Well, the thing about as an IT professional, I live my life on the phone, and so cell phones are great, but they're not necessarily the most comfortable to use if you're going to be on the phone for 3.5 hours, 4 hours if you're doing a conference call. I have to have a good phone. Not only do I have to have a good phone, I have to have a good phone everywhere in the house. And then as a side benefit, I have other things that are tied into that PBX system. So for example, I can unlock the doors from the phone system.
Of course.
I can arm or disarm the security system. I can turn on or off the lights from the all of that stuff has to be able to tie into the phone system. And of course, then when the phone system goes down, a lot of those extra modules crash with it. So I get online, and I had just gotten back from out of town, and so I didn't have a ton of money to be replacing phone systems to begin with. So I ordered a new phone system. That was Sunday. I had ordered the phone system. Monday, I wake up and I started thinking, when I was out of town, Sarah and I was out of town. I was overseas actually, and to communicate, we used something called Get on SIP. And Get on SIP is a free SIP provider that you can just sign up for an account. Really super easy to do, and you punch the details that they give you into your SIP client, and you can talk. And that's actually how we talked back and forth, was using Get on SIP. And I remember talking to the guy at Red Hat last week, and he said, "Oh, well, one of the open source solutions is we have a couple SIP clients on our laptops." And I remember walking around and seeing that all of their desk phones were SIP. And I thought, well, if Red Hat is doing that, obviously it's enterprise grade. Maybe I should look into it a little bit more. Now, back about 6-7 years ago when I first started AltaSpeed, I actually got a quote from a provider to come bring in an IP-based phone system, because it's what I really wanted to do. But it was over like 15 grand at the time, 16 grand.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford that, no way. So I told him sorry. And that was using a proprietary Cisco protocol, not SIP, which is kind of an open standard. So so eventually we ended up going with for a while we actually used Vonage, which is kind of like a residential grade VoIP provider. However, I found out this week they actually use SIP. They just hide it from you, so you don't know that it's using SIP, because they want you to buy their adapters and use it their way. So I started looking into SIP, and you might be familiar with the product Asterix. And Asterix is a software that runs on top of Linux and will allow you to basically run a phone system. Now, I knew kind of the basics of it. I heard it's kind of been in my periphery. I didn't know exactly how powerful Asterix was. But I downloaded the ISO and I installed it, and Chris, blown away, like totally blown away. Like it took me a long time to sort through how things work, because the way that SIP works you don't have a phone line that plugs into the device. You can, but it's kind of an outdated way of doing it. You pay for a SIP provider. So we have linked in the show notes a SIP provider called Ring Central, and Ring Central is a SIP provider that's going to give you an outside line so you can dial outside. Now, the way I've always done phone systems, the way that we've installed them is we have, like maybe 8 lines coming into the building, and so you can place either 4 outgoing calls and 4 incoming calls, or 6 outgoing calls and 2 incoming calls, but you have a maximum of 8 lines. The way SIP works, I can place 10,000 outgoing calls and receive 10,000 incoming calls because there is no theoretical limit. It's just how much bandwidth I have. You only pay for what they call DIDs, or direct inward dialing numbers, and those you buy those, and then that is your quote unquote phone number. And then I can route calls any which way I want to do it. So I ended before that was so Sunday night. I ordered a new PBX because I really liked my PBX. Monday, I decided I was going to play a little bit more with SIP because I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. Tuesday, I decided I had gotten Asterisk set up and I liked it so much, I decided there's probably something I could do with it. I'm not going to use it at home because I kind of want that really that phone system I trust and know and like and has served me really well for the last 7 years. I'm just going to replace it, but I'll play with it on the side. Wednesday, I was like, I'm going to put SIP in my house and I'll run them in parallel, and I'll use the phone system for, like I page the kids if I say, come out for dinner, stuff like that. We've got phones and a speaker system that goes around the house. I'll use a main phone system for that, but I'll use a SIP for doing, some, communicating back and forth from the office. Thursday, I was considering not even installing the phone system. And Friday when it came, I opened it up, I looked at it, I plugged it in to make sure it worked, and it went, well, that's cute, and set it back down because I had already switched. So now, all of the phones in my house have been switched to SIP. I am in the process currently of ripping phones out of the office and replacing those with SIP, and it has fundamentally transformed my life. I take my office phone here, and I can take it anywhere I have internet and plug it in, and I have my phone extension. You dial my local extension, and we talk. And that is just happening through the network. That isn't even that isn't even paying for the service. If I dial 9 to get an outside line, now I can call out. And I kind of, if it's all right with you, I kind of wanted to go through some of the things that we can do with this. So first of all, if you, we have set you up on my SIP server as well, right?
Right.
So if you dial.
Hold on, one pause right there. I'm just going to mention before we go too far from Ring Central, chat room, RL Gabe is mentioning the phonebooth.com is an alternative to Ring Central as well. I haven't tried them. And inphonex.com is another alternative. So there's 3, Ring Central, Inphonex, and phonebooth.com.
And full disclosure, I actually, before I even made the decision to go with a phone provider, I actually signed up with a carrier grade provider because as of next week, Altaspeed is going to start selling this. Because once I saw how it worked and once it clicked in my brain, I went, I can make money off of this and I can implement this for other people. So I am actually not using Ring Central as kind of disclosure. I'm using something else, but it's a much more expensive solution designed for people like me that because I can issue phone numbers and stuff like that.
That could be cool.
But so if I were to pick up my phone and I were to dial your extension.
Okay. And now.
Oh, and hit dial.
Yeah, and hit dial. It actually rings pretty fast, usually. I don't think you dialed my extension, Noah.
Chris Fisher.
I have it.
Signed in?
And I have it. Yeah, I have it. So I have it logged in on my Bonobes here and on my machine here. How about I'll call you? I'll call you because what I noticed is when I called you, it was super fast. So I hit call. There we go.
Okay, so I hear you. So now I can pick up.
Yeah, and now say something.
I can say hello.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Now we're connected. So that's kind of weird that I can't call in. I wonder if there's a.
I'm hanging up on you. I want to try calling you from the Bonobo. So how do I do that? So I have this Lin phone installed here, which is the only one I got to just easily install on Arch. There's probably lots of other ones, and plus there's lots of apps that have SIP support built in too.
So at the very top of the app, you see that little there, right there. Yeah, a little down a little bit. The little bar that says enter address or phone number.
Yeah,
is where you put the address or phone number. Yeah. So you go ahead and type in. There you go.
All right. So now if you answer, do I hear you coming out the Bonobo?
Hello. Hello, Mr. Chris.
Yeah.
Mr. Chris, hello.
Yeah, there you go. I hear you. Cool.
Hi.
And so I could, if you supported video, I could turn on video right now.
Right. Now let me show you some of the. Now here's where I think where this really starts to where this system really starts.
And to make it clear, you were talking to my computer from a phone handset, which is pretty neat.
I was. Yeah, you're right. So I have SIP handsets now everywhere, and I'll only be buying more of them. Now we have a couple different options for phone handsets. Now here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to call you. So let me. If Android will play well with me. All right. So.
All right, so you are gonna call me, and I can do text messaging too from this apparently.
Okay,
that's pretty.
So now you.
Oh, I see you coming up on Hangouts. Yeah. So you're. Is this?
That should be a voice call.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah, this is a voice call.
So you answer that.
I'm answering your voice call.
All right. Now watch this.
Okay.
This is where it gets really cool.
All right. What am I doing? I get some music. Nice. I like your hold music, Noah. That's nice.
Just wait. It's gonna get exciting.
Okay, I'm waiting. It's ringing. And what is it ringing for, though? Okay,
I've transferred it outside of the SIP system. So now you're back on POTS. You're no longer connected.
Hello. How are you doing? You're on the show. Say hi.
I was wondering. I'm like, this might be Noah. This looks like one of Noah's numbers, maybe.
Yeah, he's he's called us. I'm making a SIP call. Well, he called me over SIP from POTS, or so I don't know. No, explain what's going on to Angela right now.
So what has happened is I have called you via SIP.
You've called
and then
me
I've transferred
via SIP.
I've called you on my SIP line to your actual cell phone.
Yeah.
And then I've called Angela's phone and connected you two and dropped myself out.
Yeah.
So I could unplug my SIP server and you guys are connected. But Angela, the number that came up on her phone is 2300, my business line. So she has no idea what your cell phone is.
Right. Yeah. Very cool. All right, Ange. Well, thanks for randomly accepting our call.
Yeah.
I'll see you in a little bit for the faux show. Okay. All right. Bye.
So what this allows me to do is, let's say I want to connect two clients, but I don't necessarily want them to know each other. It's a privacy thing. I don't necessarily want to be giving out phone numbers. I can put those two in contact. I can remove myself, and they can have a conversation.
Right.
And my SIP server doesn't even have to be involved. But it has, like I said, this has fundamentally transformed the way I'm doing business, because now I have one of my clients I mentioned earlier in the show is we're setting them up with SIP, and so what I have is my desk phone at home. I have 8 lines, and one of the lines is Altispeed, one is my home SIP server, and the third one is going to be his. So I'll have an extension at their office, and as far as they're concerned, they can just hit that button, and then I can ring. Nice. And I'm giving them a little bit more access to me than I ordinarily would, simply because they're willing to kind of flesh out some of these problems. Yeah. But so there's a couple of products we should probably talk about a little bit. One is the phones that I'm using. So I'm using the Cisco 303s. You want to stay away from the 7900 series. I think 24 did more for the Cisco IP phones than any other thing could have, because the way that Chloe transfers jack to his cell phone and back and all that stuff is great.
Oh, I thought you were just going to say because of the ring. I love that ringtone.
Well, yeah, the default Cisco ring thing that's kind of classic too. But the 7900 series that they use in the show doesn't use SIP. It uses a proprietary Cisco IP protocol, and that's fine if you want to spend $10,000 on the Cisco controller plus all the phones and stuff, and then not be able to use any other phones. Then go that route.
These phones have a good build quality to them too. Like they feel like good phones.
The Ciscos are amazing. Yeah. I mean, absolutely amazing. If you want to use the amazing build quality of Cisco phones, but you don't want to be locked into that proprietary standard, then use SIP. Yeah. So the SPA series will allow you to have all the functionality of the 7900 series, but they are, one, they're a little bit cheaper, and two, they're compatible with SIP. So so the 303, the only thing I didn't like about the 303 is it's not backlit. So there's no backlit display if that bothers you. So the 504 phone is the upgraded model, but there's a significant price increase. And then I think one after that is like the 509, which is like a color screen. We have the 303. Sorry.
Did you by chance try out? So the 303 we have linked in the show notes.
Yep.
Before you get off that though, have you tried any of the like the Grandstream stuff? Because that's what I used to use.
I did. Yep, I had a Grandstream phone from a long time ago, almost 3 years ago, when I was traveling a lot for work. I bought little Noah a Grandstream one that he could have Skype on, and that's how we were talking for a while. Cool. And then I got mad at Skype, and so I got rid of Skype, and I went and dug it out, and that snapped right up to SIP. The only thing is the build quality and the overall quality of the phone is just not there. And for the price difference between, that's the one I have, the 3140. The price difference between this and the color screen Cisco phone, which is like $130, it's like $130 cheaper, and the build quality is 10 times better.
Okay.
However, let's say you're sitting at home and you're going, this is really cool, but I don't have $97 for a Cisco phone, and I certainly don't have $213 for a Grandstream. I got you covered. The company that I'm switching to SIP, one of my clients, they didn't have a big budget for this, and we actually went with Nortel phones. And I've linked the model number that we're using. We actually bought a set of them, I think a set of 12 off of eBay for $100. You can find single models as low as $15, sometimes less. They are so you're buying that. I think that's, what does that say, 39?
Yeah,
and that's
$39.99 for a Nortel.
I think this is factory refurbished or something like that. So this is a great basic SIP phone, good quality, good build quality. Nortel did not just get into building phones; they've been doing it for a while. So you're going to get a really good phone, but you can get it at a really, really competitive price if you buy them used.
Okay.
But the nice thing about SIP is once you have the SIP server, which by the way is free, you can just download the ISO and run it. Once you have that, you can use any SIP client. So when I was setting this up, when I was testing it to see if it would even work, I was using Android. So we were using CSIP on Android, and I had that installed, and then I was able to verify that this whole system was going to work. And then once I had it working, I said, all right, now it's time to invest in some real phones.
And one of the nice things about the CSIP on Android, especially if you are a little savvy about how you use it, is you can actually have it overtake the Android dialer. So it'll actually make calls.
Do that.
I know.
Yeah,
you can do it though. So here's where you might is if you have an Android device, and some of us are crazy enough where we do, where it's basically a Wi-Fi only Android device, it never leaves the home.
Yeah.
It works. I've done it with SIP-Droid.
Yeah, well, maybe use SIP-Droid then for that, because what happened was when I tried to have it take over the default dialer, so it would make SIP calls by default.
Yeah.
Well, what would happen is it would when I dialed the number, it would make this pop-up that said call, but I couldn't click on the call button, and then I couldn't get it to go back to the original Android dialer. So I just if I tried to make the call in as the default SIP, then it just wouldn't work. So what I've done is I disabled the default, and when I just consciously drag down and open CSIP to make my calls rather than
if you go in there, CSIP does seem to have a really pretty nice UI, and it is always running in the menu right there, so it's always available.
What brought CSIP home to me, and what I liked a little bit better about SIP-Droid, not that I played with it terribly extensively, but what I really liked about SIP-Droid was I had all the features of my PBX. So I had call transfer, I had call hold, I had the conferencing, and all of that stuff, and it gave me a directory listing and stuff, so I could just tap on Sarah, and then it would send the call to her. She could send the call back to me, and that seemed to work better
nice. From the phone. Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, from my Android phone. Now, here's my huge disclaimer, because somebody out there is going to go try this, and then they're going to get really frustrated. Do not go put an asterisk box up and plug a phone into it and just expect it to work. You might get away with that with one phone, maybe two. If you try and roll that out into a small business, it's going to flop, and it's going to flop hard. You have to do quality of service. You have to set up your router to prioritize VoIP traffic over everything else, because unlike, when you're doing a file transfer, if I'm sending you a document, it doesn't matter what order those bits get there. As long as the data gets from me to you, nobody cares. It just gets reassembled when it gets there, and we're good. There is no way for us to go back in time and reinsert a packet that arrived a little late, so that packet just gets dropped. So what happens is, if you have somebody that's torrenting, or you have somebody that's downloading something on Firefox, and you have 3 or 4 people on a call, those people on a call, they start to hear, and that starts to happen. And
that's not usable.
And that's really bad. That's really bad. And the problem is, it's not going to be a consistent problem. It's not going to be so much so that the client is going to call you and say, hey, you know what, the phones are doing this weird thing. It's going to happen once out of every week or once out of every month. It'll just be really random, but it's going to be really frustrating for them when it happens. And so you have to do quality of service. You have to go into the router and tell it to specify to give priority to that VoIP track. If you don't, you're going to have a bad time.
Okay.
And if you don't do that, then you've been warned. But if you're just doing it at your house, you'd probably be fine. And you plug it in. Bandwidth these days is up to the point. If you have anything over, I had 6 simultaneous calls going and this is before I set up the quality of service. I had 6 simultaneous calls going, and I had no jitter. So
I've noticed that too. I totally agree. In fact, sometimes I had clients that had dedicated lines for their VoIP calling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, in fact, the client that we're doing, it's going to be on a totally separate switch.
Yeah,
it's going to be a separate network.
That's a good way to do it. What do you think, though, Noah? You've focused a lot on hardware phones, but probably a lot of people in our audience have a pretty decent headset, and maybe they want to make calls from the computer. So we've talked about Linphone. We talked about Ring. What was your impressions of how well the software phones worked under Linux and things like that?
I'll be honest with you. They all sucked, with the exception of SFL phone. Linphone, it took me forever to get it registered. Something changed between then and now, because now when I did the Wizard, it worked just fine. But I had a lot of problems with getting Linphone to work. I never did get Linphone to work with Get on SIP. I never could get Linphone to work with that. I was very unimpressed. Jitsi is a joke to use with SIP. It just crashes constantly.
Really.
But SFL phone, very professional. I felt like I was sitting at a commercial grade soft phone. And if you use a decent headset, there is no reason you can't do all of your stuff on a soft phone. Personally, I'm just old-fashioned in that when the phone rings, I want to reach over, pick something up, and talk on it, or hit a button and talk. But if that's not you, the soft phone is a great way to go. And I used SFL phone extensively when I was out in where did I go? Amsterdam. And in Belgium too. What I would do is I would wait till I get a coffee shop where I had Wi-Fi, and then and CSIP was amazing in that it would automatically re-register, so it'll just continue to try and connect. And so I'd have it on my phone, and when I would travel, then I would go out, and when I'd get to a McDonald's or wherever had free Wi-Fi, CSIP would reconnect, and then I would be able to talk on it. And then if it was going to be a longer conversation, I'd take my laptop out and use SFL phone, and that worked. I've never had a problem with SFL phone. The only issue I had, the only thing that bothered me about SFL phone, it's not even really a bug. It only does 8 kilobit ringtones in AU format. So you can't just download an MP3 and set it as the ringtone, and the ringtones that come with it are god awful. So I had to go find some special software that could export into 8-bit only. Otherwise, it just like makes this horrendous noise. But then once I got the ringtone that I wanted to use and I had it exported out, it was really no problem. But it's not a functional problem. It's just it bothered me kind of problem. It was great. Everything about it. In fact, I ordered pizza on it the first night I had it set up. I ordered pizza from SFL phone on Linux, and worked out.
Zoiper seems to be another one. The chat room is pointing to us. Who did that? Goran J did. Zoiper, I'm downloading it right now. It's Zoiper. It's a cross-platform SIP client. It looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that is kind of a pipe dream for me, the thing that the Cisco phones do that I think is really kind of neat is, and I shouldn't say Cisco, all phones do, most business phones do this, but they do it, I think, particularly well. They have a do not disturb button. And so what it'll do is you can set it up two ways. You can set it up to just I don't even want to know that the phone's ringing, or blink the light to tell me that the phone's ringing, but I don't want to hear it. And it's always been kind of a pipe dream. I thought what would be so cool is if Rakai had one of these on his desk and you had one on your desk, and every time when I have thoughts or things that come to me, I could just pick up, hit the button, and if you're busy and doing something, you just turn do not disturb on, and it just won't ring you. And that's the number one complaint I have with Telegram is there's no way to tell it. There's no way to tell it. Even if I see the number come up, it might as well have just buzzed and ring and sounded bells because now it has my attention. There's no way to tell it just store that and don't even show me any knowledge of the fact that I have a message until I click on that person's name and then give me the message. I wish there was a way to do that. And I brought it up to Rakai. I'm like, hey, will you SIP with me? And he's like, no, I will not. I will not talk to you on the phone. I have no interest in that. Don't even bother trying it. And so
sorry,
he didn't want to play SIP with me. But it is even from using it from with Sarah and I, when I'm at the office and she's at home and she's hit the button a couple times, and you can do a page function, so she comes over the speakerphone and it'll go beep, and then she'll say what she wants, and then I can respond, and then she's gone again. And to me, that is very, very unintrusive. It's a very unintrusive way for me to talk.
Sorry, no, I have, not to interrupt, I have Zoiper installed, Zoiper, and it looks okay. I haven't connected it yet to the SIP server, but here it is running under I just downloaded the tar file from their website and then just runs an installer. So
I'm installing it as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, suffice to say, I have gone from not really knowing a whole lot about SIP to thinking it's kind of cool to becoming a SIP fanboy. I don't know if I'll ever go back to using a regular phone system. I don't think I'll ever recommend somebody go to using a regular phone system, because the reality is this is an incredibly cheap way to do things, and they have hosted PBX solutions. So let's say you didn't want to set up asterisks. There are places, and I don't have one to recommend because I didn't really do this because it's not really my style, but you can go pay like the $30 a month or $40 a month, and they'll give you 10 extensions, and then they just give you extension, host name, and password, and you sign in, and now that's your extension, but they host everything for you. Of course, if you're asking me personally, I would spin it up on DigitalOcean, and then you're paying $5 a month, and you can have unlimited extensions.
Very clever, Noah. So there's got to be people out there that have been doing this kind of stuff for years now and have so many insights. I was watching a really awesome Asterisk installation 7, 8, 9, maybe years ago, maybe that long, maybe. I mean, it's been around for a while, so I know there's people out there that have messed with it. Let us know your thoughts, your tips, your tricks, your software solutions, your Asterisk distros out of the box. LinuxActionShow.reddit.com. Look for the feedback thread for this here episode. and let us know. Or send it to linuxactionshow@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Noah, any other thoughts on all this goodness?
No, I think that about covers it.
All right, well, then I'm just waiting for my 1-800-CALL Linux, and then we'll get...
You know what? That could be a thing.
I know, we should do that.
I tell you what, I'll go on the record and say this right now. If there are people that are interested in doing that, if there would be people that would be interested in having a 1-800 number, would volunteer their time to answer, to take those calls, because we can do it all software-based.
We should do it here. We'll just every couple episodes, we'll just take calls. You're on the air with Chris and Noah. Go.
Yeah.
And, it'd always be about grousing about KDE.
But I would put up the resources to have to fund the DID, fund the asterisk server, and then if people would, all they'd have to do is volunteer time to log into their SIP extension.
No, dude. Here's what you do. You just, when nobody's available to answer, you just pipe the phone number into the mumble room.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. They don't. They're very good, but they're very good at giving answers. However, you better be prepared to take a joke or two or three, and they might be a little coarse.
Maybe it'd have to be like a special room. It'd be a special padded room on the mobile. All right. Well, there's lots of good resources for hardware, software solutions, hosting providers, Asterisk itself. All of that is linked up in the show notes. Just go find episode 171 of the Linux Action Show. Right? 270, 371, 371. I can't even. Just find this episode.
It's like 171.
The one you just downloaded. Look, I record these things. There's no number here, but you download. There's a number plastered all over the place. You just go to the one that's number.
That's true. That's true. And
then you just go find the show notes. And then maybe in the future we'll have a 1-800-CALL Linux, and you can leave your thoughts live. Oh man, imagine if people could call in right now and give us their thoughts. Maybe in the future.
I'm not saying that they make a SIP device that is specifically designed to tie into broadcasting, but they may or may not make a SIP device that is specifically designed to tie into broadcasting that has like two XLR outs or an dual XLR out and in, so you can plug it right into your. I'm not saying that exists, but it might exist.
If there was such a thing, you should send me a link to that. All right, Noah, we should get out of here before we buy even more SIP gadgets. But it's cool. I bet I wouldn't be surprised if it's not in the future here at the Jupiter Broadcasting Studios too. Get some SIP phones. And that's the Linux Action Show's look at how you can do some free calling on free software. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But Noah, before we get the F out of here, we do have I started on the wrong shot. Hold on. I'm going to do that over again. Hold on. Your face. All that barbecue talk.
Makes you not even want to look at me, so you had to go to your shot only.
That is a dirty joke. What's a dirty joke? What? All right,
Listen.
Here we go. Noah. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But hey, Noah, before we get out of here, we do have some emails to read. Francis F. writes in with our first email. She says, I just want to take a moment and applaud you both for a job well done, bringing Linux to many listeners and promoting the great advantages of using it. Well, thank you. He says, as for myself, I've been using Linux since 2004. This was presented to me by a friend that was an Apple diehard after hearing me talk about Unix and my programming in Fortran and Pascal. I started off with Ubuntu 4.10, and the rest is history. Currently, I'm a senior director at the MTA how do you say that one? Metropolitan, yes, thank you. Transit Authority. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that. Metropolitan Transit Authority, Electronics Integration Emerging Technologies of New York City, and their division of subways. Since my inception, I have been promoting the use of Linux with much resistance, and as I believe due to the fear of the unknown. But not all is lost. I have shed light on the ways that can be better in our organization with the use of Linux and open source technologies, and right now we're working towards that and a project that uses Linux and to support our legacy testing equipment. If you ever want to chat about it sometime, let me know. Well, Francis, you just did. It's cool to hear that the New York subway system is getting some Linux. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and so this comes kind of like basically we're cut from the same cloth, so to speak. I mean, this guy is working every day to try to convince people that they could be using Linux to solve their problems, and that kind of stands out to me. But what's cool is that he is in such a high level, right? So he's the director of a director of IT for the city of New York,
the Transit Authority at New York, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's huge, and to have a guy like that say, "Hey, I think that we need to be using more Linux." I think that's really cool. So when he wrote in, I was super excited to hear from him.
Yeah, it can always be a little scary to advocate in your workplace when you're new too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Good luck, Francis.
So Jason writes in and he says, hey, I'm one of the technicians at Penn Manor School District, a district that you folks have spoken about from time to time in regard to our open source implementation. Red Hat caught wind of our story and decided to make the journey to Pennsylvania to highlight our environment in the form of a short video documentary. They did an outstanding job with the video. Here's the video in case you folks find it interesting.
Should we take a quick peek?
Yeah, we should.
Okay, all right, we'll take a quick peek. It looks a little long, but let's watch it just for a minute here. Red Hat Films presents. That's cool, Noah. Red Hat Films. Open source stories. Penn Manor. The power of open in education.
In the spirit of the open philosophy, we decided early on that we wanted our kids to be engineers and inventors, and not technology tourists.
Yeah, I think so.
And here's where we broke from tradition. During our class meetings, we spoke with all of our high school students about the program. We brought them together and we started that conversation with the words, "We trust you."
Yeah, remember they give the students root access.
Mm-hmm. He talks about that.
What we didn't want to lose sight of was the fact that any one-to-one program, when you're giving every child a computing device, that is fundamentally an instructional program. It truly shouldn't have anything to do with the technology. Right? Not that the technology isn't important, but it's the learning that is the focus.
We've always been looking at it from the standpoint of we have to educate students for life after high school. And with technology being such an important factor in just about every job that the student's going to go into, it wasn't a matter of should we do it, it was more of when do we provide the students with a laptop.
When you give students a chance to explore, you're teaching them to be responsible. And in their future, hopefully in their careers, they will have learned in my class and in their other classes how to be responsible users of technology. It's not going anywhere.
That's cool.
So why would we ever consider giving a 16-year-old root access to a laptop? I think the question we should be asking is why would we not give students ultimate autonomy and control over their technology devices? I think by unlocking devices and giving kids truly open technology, it empowers them to not only understand what's underneath the hood, but understand that they can impact the world through software, through technology. They can be part of the decisions that are being made and not the result or the end user of someone else's decision.
Man, well put. You know, we had a great chat with Charlie and his team on Linux Unplugged maybe a year ago. I can't remember now. And some of the students that are involved in the IT there to help doing the troubleshooting, they have a one-to-one laptop program that is powered by Linux. It's really cool that Red Hat went out there and got a video of that. I like that.
Yeah, that's more people that have a vote of confidence in Linux on the desktop.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Scott D writes in with questions about Self. Noah, he says, it was just stated by Noah, I think that Self was more than a technical Linux conference, that there was much about guns, politics, and the country going to hell. Please elaborate on that some. I asked in Southeast Linux Fest on Freenode whether they could tell me it was a self-related event at a local shooting range. Thanks. I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, but I have lived later half my life and continue to live in Montana. I have not attended Self because of the distance to it, but I have made it to Linux Fest Northwest for the last 9-ish years. Just curious how Self might be different than that.
So I wanted to touch on this for a couple of reasons. One is I can't believe that you make it to Linux Fest Northwest and I haven't had a chance to shake your hand. You should come say hi. I don't recognize your name, so come say hi to us.
To both of us, yeah.
And us being you and me at the at the table. But as far as the differences between Self and Linux Fest Northwest, honestly, they're a lot in the same, actually. They're very similar conferences. Both of them are, you find a lot of people running Linux. You meet a lot of really cool people. You have a lot of community building. I'd say the only thing that's different is Self is maybe a little bit smaller than Linux Fest Northwest. And so you get an opportunity to have a little bit more deep, meaningful discussions rather than, people just bumping into each other a lot. And so those are some of the differences. As far as what things, I don't know if you're asking what things are talked about, but being in Charlotte, it's a lot of really country Southern boys that are there, and so yeah, they like to talk about beer and shooting and if you're from Memphis, Tennessee, then and you lean kind of to the right, then you'd fit in with that political discussion quite a bit. But yeah, they took us all to the gun range and we had geeks with guns, and so we went out and blew off.
That discussion happens. I mean, It can happen
when outside the conference.
Yeah, that's outside the conference. I mean, you can know when you get to know people really well, it can happen at the conference. But there's no tracks at the conference that are about any of those things.
Well, you see, to some degree that's true. But the Geeks for Guns was a track at the conference. Like that was the activity for the night of whatever it was.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So there are, and then actually, and so then to add on to that, then the next night was beer tasting night. So everyone
sure, beer. Yeah, I meant more about the politics. Actually,
yeah, right. Well, yeah.
There's no, as far as I know, there's no politics tracks itself.
No, there's no politics tracks, but you put a bunch of those guys with beer inside of a room. And believe me,
it happens anyways.
To me, politics happens.
Yeah.
But no, so I'm not exactly sure. I hope that kind of answers your question. But what you should take away from nothing else is that both conferences are amazing, and if you can make it to both, if not, alternate off between them. And if you had to pick between one or the other, pick Linux West Northwest because that's kind of the home one.
Boom. Well, that is usually our big show. Thank you, Jason. You too can send in your feedback. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click the contact link, and choose Linux Action Show from the drop-down, or linuxactionshow.reddit.com. That's a good spot for feedback, app picks, suggestions for open source projects that need more attention, news, votes. Honestly, did you stop by that subreddit and didn't vote this week? That hurts, man. That hurts. That hurts down here because I need your opinions over at linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Also, join us live on Sundays, 10 a.m. Pacific over jblive.tv. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that converted to your local magical time zone, which is the best time zone ever. So we have it automatically set at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And then, of course, the show comes out Sunday evenings. Just go over to Jupiter Broadcasting and subscribe to an RSS feed and get it automatically. And check out Noah. Noah, where do you want to send people this week?
This week you can go to Altispeed. The same place I'm at every week is altispeed.com. That's kind of my home base. As of next week, you might see something on the website about Altispeed offering SIP service because as I've kind of thrashed it out here at my house, and I've got one client that's going to start using it. That goes well after a week or so. I think it's very likely that that's
Let me know. I want to try. I want to try. Let me know. I'll test it for you. Also. You can don't forget I got a new Twitter handle. If you want to follow it, you can. I'm not super active on Twitter, but it's Chris LAS. It's the same name, but it's a new account, so you got to refollow it. And then we have the Jupiter Signal, which is the network account at Jupiter Signal. And I also don't forget about that meetup, meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. We're going to be at OSCON on July 22nd and Wednesday at 5 o'clock. We're going to go out to dinner. I think it was like I can't remember. There's a little bar. I think it's all ages down the road, but I'm not positive. And if you're going to make it to OSCON, use that promo code Linux when you check out to save 20% off. Or tweet them, or tweet us at Jupiter Signal and use hashtag OSCON in your tweet to enter for the bronze ticket. Because I'd love to see you guys at OSCON. It's their last year in Portland, so we want to have a party with you guys before they head out. And if you're in the Portland area, you don't even have to be at OSCON to join us. You can still attend the meetup. Just come say hi to us.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week. Man, I barbecued a whole chicken the other day. It was so good.
You grilled the whole chicken?
Dude, grilling, stop it.
Over low indirect heat?
Stop it. Grilling only applies to propane.
Stop it. Didn't you cook it over slow indirect heat? You passively admitted on Twitter that explanation made sense, which I was willing to accept, even though I didn't think it would be any fun to accept.
No, listen.
You know what Alex's new thing? You know what I got him for, I got it for him for Christmas. He just bothered to come pick it up now, but I bought him a sous vide cooker. So he's been sous videing meat lately.
Look at that. Look at that chicken.
That is excellent. It's a very good grilled chicken. I think that
see those coals in there? Those are coals. Yep. And actually, they're not in this. Actually, I don't think I have them in this thing. But I also got some interesting things that release smoke. It was really kind of cool. That's cheating.
Yeah?
That's cheating. I know that's cheating. I admit that's cheating.
Every different way that you can find to substitute for actually barbecuing something.
No, this is barbecuing. That's barbecuing right there. That's barbecuing. Look at that. That's barbecuing. Look, that is not grilling. That's not propane.
I understand that, but where do you get this propane differential? Where has that? How have you arrived?
Because that's how the entire rest of the barbecue and barbecue related accessories industry defines it.
So everyone does something, then they must be right. So really, what we should do is we should all install Windows.
When things of culture are of concern, it is defined exactly by how many people do it. Yes.
Wouldn't it be defined by how that culture defines it?
That exactly. No.
Okay.
That's how the culture.
So then, shouldn't we have to go to the barbecue culture? And hasn't the barbecue culture spoken and said that the barbecue culture identifies barbecue by being cooked in indirect, low heat with smoke to flavor?
You take what grilling is defined as is propane, And barbecuing is anything that uses fire, real fire,
you know,
like,
you have that, you know,
like
you see that metal thing that pan is sitting on, and it has like this, those little strips of metal, also maybe sometimes known as a grill, that you set things on. Yeah, that would be why it's called grill.
Okay, so if I had taken the same exact chicken,
yes,
and I put it in a hole in the ground,
yes,
then that would be barbecuing.
I would argue yes.
Okay, so. Now, if I had taken a hole in the ground,
yes, hole in the ground,
and I put a hot plate burner in there, is that barbecuing? And not used charcoal?
Is there coals on top of the hot plate burner?
No,
that would not be barbecuing.
So it would seem to be, in your definition, coals or wood are integral to the barbecuing. But yet somehow in your world, it only counts as barbecues if it's done in a hole in the ground.
No. Or a cooking. If you did in a green egg, I would count it. If you took
the green eggs now. Okay.
Oh, the green
Last
egg,
week the green egg wasn't fine. Okay.
All right, fine. I'll even give you this. If you were to somehow,
what's the difference between
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say, and just understand, I know what you're going to say, and I'm leaving that out for comedic value. If you were to maybe acquire a smoker and have a smoker that you could use, like maybe the one that's sitting in your garage and has been there for the last year, if you took that one and you were to maybe take it out of the box and use it, I would call that barbecuing.
What? No, that's smoking.
Well, really, that's smoking. But
here's the thing.
That's because it would be indirect heat. It would be low heat, and it would be flavored with smoke. So it'd be close.
But see, now here's the thing, though, Noah, is that chicken is now this one in particular wasn't, but a lot of times I'll take a chicken and I'll do a ring of coals around the chicken.
A ring of coals. Okay, that's closer to indirect heat. Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna see eye to eye on this one.
I don't think so either. But you know what? Here's the good news. We can eat a lot of really good food while we argue about it.
That's true.
Like if you're like, here, this is barbecue, and I'm like, no, this is barbecue, and then you're like, this is barbecue. We just have a lot of barbecue.
I'm telling you, if you look at that chicken, tell me that doesn't look like delicious barbecue. I think there's something wrong with it.
I said it was delicious. I take exception to the delicious barbecue. It's delicious chicken.
There was no propane involved. No propane involved.